Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, Your Excellency, Mr. Augusto Santos Silva, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal, distinguished delegates and guests, thank you all for joining us today. We pay tribute to an extraordinary man and a remarkable statesman and a visionary who was a mentor for many, including people in this room. I invited all of you to stand for a minute of silence in honor of His Excellency President Jorge Sampaio. Thank you. I am honored to be the moderator of this event, which is co-organized by the Permanent Mission of Portugal and the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. Now I'm going to express in few words, in my capacity as High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, my testimony to my dear friend Jorge Sampaio. Excellencies, distinguished guests, the life of great men teach us that we can make our life sublime and meaningful, and when we depart this world, we leave behind us footprints of the pages of history. As such was the life of His Excellency President Jorge Sampaio. He left his mark as President of Portugal, as a UN official leading the United Nations Alliance of Civilization at its infancy, and as a special envoy to stop tuberculosis, as well as a humanist in the service of humanity. President Sampaio only knew too well that no one is indispensable, including himself. Not only he understood and recognized the value of great opportunities, he also created them and used them to help others, serve the community, and reduce human suffering. Excellencies, our world is going through trying times. We are far from being out of the woods, not just yet. Division, mistrust, hatred, and discrimination define our times. That's why we choose President Sampaio's wise word. Solidarity is a duty, to headline this tribute. His words are a reminder that we all have a part to play in the quest for a better future of dignity, opportunity, and prosperity for all people living together, equally as one humanity in one planet. Saving the planet and saving our humanity are intertwined and interdependent. 13 years ago, President Sampaio reiterated the same words we are saying today at the United Nations Alliance of Civilization First Global Forum in Madrid in 2008. He said in his opening statement, and I quote, "In a world marked by such profound imbalances, it is not just the planet that is showing an advanced state of degradation, but also, unfortunately, human atmosphere. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the dialogue between civilization, religions, and culture is turning to a humanitarian urgency that cannot be postponed." End of the quote. President Sampaio echoed the same word during our last meeting in Lisbon on 25 November 2019 at the Lisbon Forum. This is how visionary he was. and it's his visionary leadership that was the building block of what the United Nations Alliance of Civilization became today. Myself and my predecessor, Ambassador Nasser Abdelaziz Al-Nasir, built on that solid basis that President Sampaio put together, early in 2007. He contextualized new parameters of living together, of what we Spanish and Portuguese say, convivencia. I can speak for hours about President Sampaio and his accomplishment, but I will leave it to all the distinguished speakers who will follow and who have known him and worked him more than I did. I was fortunate and honored to work with President Sampaio during our time in office, him as the President of Portugal and myself as Foreign Minister of Spain. Then again, when he assumed his tenure as the High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization from 2007 to 2012. President Sampaio's integrity, humility, and belief in our common humanity, our common good, inform all his action as a statement as a human being. My dear friends, that is the sense, that is the legacy we will continue to inspire all of us. Thank you, President Sampaio, for all your achievements. Thank you. So now I want to give the floor to Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, who has known and worked closely with President Sampaio. Mr. Secretary General, we are deeply honored to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, I am pleased to join you to honor the memory of my dear friend and compatriot, Jorge Sampaio. We all mourned Jorge Sampaio's passing on 10 September this year. Portugal lost an extraordinary leader, one of the country's best, and the world lost a great statesman who will be remembered for his compassion, empathy, intelligence, and wisdom. Jorge Sampaio left an impressive legacy. He was a good man who devoted himself to noble causes and improving the lives of people worldwide. A courageous champion of democracy and social justice, a human rights defender, and a passionate advocate for vulnerable people everywhere. Jorge Sampaio was a man of integrity, humanism, and cordiality. Gentle and open, he showed respect for everybody. And as well as dedicating his life to bringing democracy and prosperity to Portugal, Jorge Sampaio was a committed global citizen and multilateralist. I was proud to work with him on many issues, but especially on the question of Timor-Leste regaining independence. And I'm greatly admired his efforts as UN Special Envoy to stop tuberculosis. Working far from the limelight, he took up the cause of ridding the world of one of the most dangerous contagious diseases. As Special Envoy, he worked closely with the Stop Tuberculosis Partnership and the World Health Organization Global Tuberculosis Program. Humble and determined, he was as comfortable on the front lines with patients and health professionals as he was advocating for them in the corridors of power. Subsequently, as the first High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, Jorge Sampaio was the successful architect of an important United Nations mechanism. The Alliance's goal is both simple and complex: to promote preventive diplomacy and build bridges of dialogue and understanding between cultures and religions. And this effort remains of utmost importance today. At the end of his mandate in 2013, Jorge Sampaio could have rested. Instead, his passion for fighting for the right cause led him to launch the Global Platform for Syrian Students, providing a lifeline to Syrian students to continue their education under an emergency scholarship program. For his lifelong efforts, the United Nations General Assembly awarded Jorge Sampaio the first ever Nelson Mandela Prize in 2015, along with Dr. Helena Ndume of Namibia. Accepting the award, he spoke not of himself, but all the people, communities and movements he had worked alongside to improve lives around the world. This was typical of a man who devoted his life to promoting the common good. I would like to leave you with a quotation from Jorge Sampaio's Mandela Prize speech, which very much sums up my own feelings about our future. I really do believe, he said, that what our 21st century is missing is this vision, this optimism about humankind, grounded in the extraordinary power of the soul that makes men and women capable of compassion, hope, resilience, pride, and sacrifice. That is what we need to do to build hope in the future, to infuse public life and international relations with a bit of magic. End of quote. As we work together to address humanity's many common challenges, let us be inspired by these words. And let us find a bit of magic in our relations with each other as nations and as people. Jorge Sampaio will be sorely missed in Portugal and beyond. E queria exprimir a minha profunda solidariedade a todos os seus amigos e familiares aqui presentes. Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Thank the Secretary-General for his moving words, and we are honored to have Excellency Mr. Augusto Santos Silva, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal, that is joining us today. He has flown to New York to participate in this tribute, and we thank you, Minister. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, Mr. High Representative, dear friends. As a country profoundly committed to deepening the protection and promotion of all human rights, Portugal is honored to pay tribute here at the United Nations to the work and legacy of late President Jorge Sampaio, who dedicated his life to the service of our common humanity by defending democratic values and principles, promoting intercultural dialogue, protecting the more vulnerable, and advocating for global causes of social transformation in line with the purposes of the United Nations. Jorge Sampaio contributed to tackle various of the main challenges that the international community currently faces: the fight against pandemics like tuberculosis, the promotion of a public health approach to the world drug problem, the advancement of intercultural and interreligious dialogue, and the protection of human rights, including the right to education. In the 60s, during the dictatorship in Portugal, and while still a student, Jorge Sampaio became an activist in the struggle for democracy. Then, as a lawyer, he defended political prisoners in Portugal. Soon he became a notorious political leader, engaged in the democratic opposition, and eventually, after the Carnation Revolution of 1974, he became a key figure in the Portuguese democratic transition. Sampaio's integrity, belief in social justice, and commitment to public service led him to hold several political positions, such as Secretary of State for Cooperation, Member of Parliament, Secretary General of the Socialist Party, and opposition leader. Then he was elected Mayor of Lisbon and re-elected. Culminating his political career, he was elected twice as President of Portugal. In May 2006, Jorge Sampaio was appointed by Kofi Annan as the first UN Secretary General's special envoy to stop tuberculosis. His nomination was then extended by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon every year until the end of 2012. He worked towards building heightened awareness of tuberculosis as the leading cause of death at the time when around 5,000 people were dying of tuberculosis every day. Indeed, he succeeded at raising international visibility to the scale of the disease and its impact on the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. Then Ban Ki-moon appointed Jorge Sampaio as the first UN High Representative for the Alliance of Civilizations. From 2007 and 2013, as High Representative for the Alliance of Civilizations, Jorge Sampaio promoted cultural diversity across the globe as a key driver for peace, prosperity, and social cohesion. By providing a forum for dialogue and cooperation aimed at fighting hatred and violence, the Alliance of Civilizations mobilized concerted action aimed at improving cross-cultural understanding and cooperation among countries, peoples, and communities. From 2012 onwards, Jorge Sampaio focused his efforts on two main areas of the global agenda which remained close to his heart along his life: higher education and drug policy. In 2012, he joined the Global Commission on Drug Policy and participated actively in advocacy actions to promote health-based approaches to drug use worldwide, as well as in the framework of the UN Drug Conventions, fighting against the persistent punitive approach to drug use. In 2013, President Sampaio launched the Global Platform for Syrian Students, a multi-stakeholder initiative aimed at providing emergency scholarships to Syrian students that would allow them to resume their university studies. As a strong advocate of the right to education for all at all levels, and notably higher education in crisis situations, Jorge Sampaio was particularly aware of the role education can play to provide protection to students being persecuted or at risk, to contribute to their self-reliance, and thus as a catalyst for socio-economic recovery in war-torn countries. As Jorge Sampaio once expressed, education is the most powerful driver for change. More recently, the Global Platform for Syrian Students expanded its scope and enlarged the field of action in order to become a true catalyst for higher education in emergencies. So a rapid response mechanism for higher education in emergencies is being set up, in addition to the scholarship programs that are run since 2014. As of now, around 750 annual scholarships were awarded, allowing around 320 Syrian youngsters and other students from conflict-affected societies in forced mobility or at risk to resume their studies and complete their graduation at bachelor, master, or PhD level. Sampaio's global engagement was underpinned by his detailed knowledge of international affairs and his sophisticated political skills that allowed him to navigate the complexity of world politics. His work was streamlined by the following four key elements. First, a strong human rights-based approach aimed at achieving equality and dignity for all, putting always people first. Second, the need to improve collaborative problem-solving, enhancing cooperation among organizations and stakeholders, and exploring synergies and partnerships to find solutions for common problems. Third, promoting evidence-based change in policy framework and strategies. Four, using dialogue and critical thinking to enhance trust and understanding among people and to solve conflicts. As President Sampaio wrote, and we chose for this session's motto, solidarity is not an option, it is a duty, a moral duty because we are equal in dignity and rights, a political obligation, because only together we can address and solve our problems. Portugal will continue supporting the scholarship program launched by Jorge Sampaio, assuring its continuation and striving for its expansion. We will also pursue international efforts towards the implementation of the rapid response mechanism for emergencies in higher education, and will continue working to integrate higher education opportunities into international humanitarian response. This should not be seen just as a Portuguese agenda. Sampaio's extraordinary legacy and leadership, by example, will remain an inspiration for the United Nations in the promotion of a culture of peace, justice, and human development, of spirit and tolerance, and respect for all. Muito obrigado.
I thank Prime Minister Silva for his beautiful work and multiple achievement of President Sampaio. But before moving to our next segment, I wish to acknowledge the presence online of President Sampaio's wife, Mrs. Maria Jose Rita, and his daughter, Mrs. Vera Sampaio, and his son, Mr. Andres Sampaio. I also wish to acknowledge Elena Barroco, who traveled from Lisbon to be with us today. I know, Elena, how much you work together in the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. Thank you for being with us today. So, thank you, Excellencies. Now I invite you to watch a tribute video that we compiled chronicling the milestone in President Sampaio's journey. It was very difficult to summarize his great achievement in 7 minutes. Please play the video.
Solidarity is not an option, it is a duty. This is one of President Jorge Sampaio's most significant quotes, one that served as his guiding principle in everything he strived to achieve. President Jorge Sampaio's memory of civic and political achievements, his profound humanity and compassion, will remain with the people of Portugal and the international community forever. President Sampaio was a pillar of democracy whose remarkable career spans over 3 decades. He became the leader of Portugal's Socialist Party from 1989 to 1992, then mayor of Lisbon from 1990 to 1995, before serving as Portugal's head of state for 2 terms, from 1996 to 2006. Jorge Sampaio believed in the independence of East Timor. He led the way to establish peace and pushed for a resolution at the UN that led to the creation of the international force East Timor. President Jorge Sampaio was also a dedicated global citizen. In 2007, he was appointed by then United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan as the very first UN Special Envoy to stop tuberculosis, a position he held for 6 years. President Sampaio fought to raise awareness about TB and advocated for greater commitment and funding for TB prevention, treatment, and research. He also worked to provide critically needed drugs to the countries most affected by the disease. President Sampaio became the very first High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, a position he held from 2007 to 2012. He laid the groundwork for this initiative's essential mission to build bridges of dialogue and understanding between cultures and religions. UNAOC was launched in 2005 in the aftermath of 9/11 and the chain of terrorist attacks that followed around the world, to forge a collective political effort to address the roots of polarization and design results-oriented approaches to resolve it.
In our world marked by such profound imbalances, it is not just the planet that is showing an advanced state of degradation, but also, unfortunately, human atmosphere. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the dialogue between civilizations, religions, and cultures has turned into a humanitarian urgency that cannot be postponed.
Under the visionary leadership of President Sampaio, UNAOC became more than just a platform. He viewed UNAOC as a new and complementary UN soft power tool to strengthen the human foundations of peace throughout the world and foster intercultural dialogue and cooperation among nations and peoples.
Urgent action is needed to stop, really to stop, further degradation of human atmosphere. Let's keep united, let's understand dissent, let's agree on how to disagree. I insist on this formula. Let's keep united and firm in our conviction that in fact we can contribute to change the world in which we live in. Let's go back to our work. Let's move forward because emergencies really never wait.
With that vision, President Sampaio established a UNAOC family comprised of governments, international organizations, academics, the private sector, the media, and youth. He was the architect of the organizational structure of UNAOC in its early years. Since 2015, the Alliance has reaffirmed its status within the UN system thanks to the support of the UN member states who recognized its role in promoting cultural diversity based on respect for the human rights of all individuals, mutual respect and understanding. President Sampaio strived to develop and put into reality a new agenda for living together, aiming to bring a transformational change. He engaged with stakeholders to take bold actions, do more, better, and faster to achieve that goal. Building on that, he gave impetus to regional and national processes to implement the UNAOC goals and advance intercultural and interreligious dialogue among nations.
In our one world, let's share one dream made of 3 wishes. Achieve better rights for all, give really peace a chance, and build a common hope for future generations.
During his tenure, UNAOC developed projects that aimed to build bridges of understanding in innovative ways, drawing on existing efforts and bringing together a broad spectrum of actors. President Sampaio worked tirelessly to create the globally recognized initiative that UNAOC is today. President Sampaio's passion for fighting for the right cause led him to launching the Global Platform for Syrian Students in 2013, a non-profit which provided a rare lifeline to Syrian students to continue their education in safe countries under an emergency scholarship program. President Jorge Sampaio's legacy of service to humanity was recognized in many ways. In 2015, the UN General Assembly awarded him, together with Dr. Helena Ndume of Namibia, with the first ever UN Nelson Mandela Prize. The honorary award was in recognition of President Sampaio's promotion of reconciliation, social cohesion, and community development, and for his role as a consistent supporter of Portuguese democracy.
I really do believe that what our 21st century is missing is this vision, this optimism about humankind, grounded in the extraordinary power of the soul that makes men and women capable of compassion, hope, resilience, pride, and sacrifice.
President Jorge Sampaio will always be remembered, not only as a visionary leader and a remarkable statesman, but above all as an extraordinary human being filled with compassion and humility.
Well, before moving to the tribute remark segment, I wish to note that we are live tweeting this event using the hashtag Solidarity is a Duty so follow us on the handle at UNAOC. As you all know, the Alliance of Civilization was created in 2005 as the special political initiative of the Secretary General. The founding fathers of the Alliance were former President of the Spanish government, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, and then Prime Minister of Turkey, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Since then, both Spain and Turkey continue to provide political and financial support to the UNOSC. I'm honored to introduce the video message of Her Excellency Mr. José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, former President of the Government of Spain for 2 terms from 2004 to 2011. Please, the message of President Zapatero.
Deseo sumarme al merecido homenaje y al recuerdo de Jorge Sampaio, del presidente Sampaio. Sampaio tuvo una trayectoria en defensa de las libertades, de la democracia, de los derechos humanos y de la paz intachable. Toda su tarea política en ese querido país que es Portugal está llena de aciertos, de éxitos y de compromisos incuestionables con los mejores valores de una visión humanista de la sociedad, de una visión humanista de las relaciones de convivencia, de la acción política. Portugal es un país que ganó la democracia y ganó progreso y ganó un gran reconocimiento internacional. La tarea de Jorge Sampaio ha sido decisiva para ese reconocimiento a Portugal y para el éxito de ese país iberoamericano. Además, debo recordar con emoción, con agradecimiento, que Jorge Sampaio fue el primer alto representante de la Alianza de Civilizaciones, que se comprometió en un momento muy difícil, donde la política internacional giraba en torno a un choque, un enfrentamiento de culturas. La Alianza de Civilizaciones, bajo su liderazgo, se creó, se consolidó, se puso en marcha y hoy representa dentro de Naciones Unidas una de las áreas con más expectativa de futuro para acercar los pueblos, las culturas, las religiones, para evitar el odio, para superar el fanatismo, para lograr una sociedad internacional donde prime la paz. Naciones Unidas ha tenido en su seno grandes hombres y grandes mujeres. Uno de ellos es Jorge Sampaio, a quien recuerdo con cariño, con afecto y con gratitud. Y Naciones Unidas se honra y nos honra a todos nosotros con este homenaje a su figura y a su trayectoria. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, President Zapatero. Her Excellency, the President of Turkey, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has been an enthusiastic supporter of the UNOSC since its inception. He was then the Prime Minister of Turkey from 2003 to 2014, and I invite you to watch what Her Excellency President Erdogan said about President Sampaio and this recorded video.
Sayın Genel Sekreter,
Esteemed Secretary General, distinguished High Representative, dear participants, I affectionately salute you with all my heartfelt feelings. I am deeply saddened by the passing of Jorge Sampaio, former President of Portugal and the first High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my condolences once again to Mr. Sampaio's family, the Portuguese people, and the United Nations. Mr. Sampaio was a remarkable statesman who played an important role in Portugal's democracy history. Throughout his political career, from mayor of Lisbon to president, he worked to secure the effective implementation of pluralist democracy. We will always remember Mr. Sampaio for his contributions throughout his presidency to foster Turkey-Portuguese friendship and collaboration. As you are aware, we launched the Alliance of Civilizations initiative in 2005 with my dear friend, Mr. Zapatero, and former Prime Minister of Spain. Mr. Sampaio was the first High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, which later became a United Nations initiative as adopted by the Secretary General of the United Nations. Mr. Sampaio made major contributions to the Alliance of Civilizations' conceptual framework and institutionalization, as well as to the diversification of its actions during his tenure from 2007 to 2012. He worked tirelessly to transform the Alliance of Civilizations into a structure dedicated to global peace. Indeed, under Mr. Sampaio's leadership, the Alliance of Civilizations developed into a crucial component of the United Nations system, moving beyond a platform. The group of Friends of the Alliance of Civilization, which was founded under the auspices of the United Nations today, has 146 members, including states and international organizations. Mr. Sampaio's inclusive attitude undoubtedly has a great impact on the current status of the Alliance of Civilizations. Esteemed participants, we have made considerable efforts towards making the Alliance of Civilization a successful and effective peace project since its establishment. At a time when Islamophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, and xenophobia are on the rise, the Alliance of Civilization's vision and values are more necessary than ever. This initiative, the seeds of which we planted 16 years ago, provides a critical way out of the world's current crises. With these thoughts, I once again commemorate Mr. Sampaio with respect and express my condolences to his family, loved ones, and the Alliance of Civilizations.
Thank you, President of Turkey. Now we move to representatives of the regional groups who join us today to pay tribute to President Sampaio. Please deliver the remark from your seat. I give the floor to Her Excellency Ambassador Yasser Aliyev, Permanent Representative of Azerbaijan, representing the Eastern European Group. Ambassador.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the group of Eastern European states. We are gathered today to honor the memory of the former President of Portugal and former High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, Jorge Fernando Branco de Sampaio, who passed away on September 10th this year. The Eastern European Group offers its heartfelt condolences to his family and loved ones and all the people of Portugal for their loss. Today we remember a great leader and statesman who dedicated his life to his beloved homeland of Portugal and later to the betterment of all humankind through his work at the United Nations. From his very first days in politics as a student leader in the 1960s to his role in the transition of Portugal to democratic rule in 1970s, from his tenure as a popular mayor of Lisbon in 1990s, to his 2 terms as the President of Portugal from 1996 to 2006, Jorge Sampaio's legacy as a great uniter and social justice advocate is forever enshrined in history. His passion and commitment to bringing stability and prosperity to his country became an everlasting inspiration for generations of politicians and public servants. During his service as the President of Portugal, he dealt with all challenges currently facing the international community, including climate change, HIV/AIDS, drugs, human rights, children issues, and other. Later in his career, Jorge Sampaio put his formidable talents to the service of all humanity, first of all, the United Nations Special Envoy to stop tuberculosis, and subsequently as the first High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. It was in that role that his skills as a great reconciliator became instrumental in fulfilling the vital mission of building bridges and establishing dialogues between cultures and religions. Jorge Sampaio's contribution to freedom, multilateralism, and peacemaking have been widely acknowledged throughout the world. He was the recipient of many honors and national decorations in his own country, including the highest ancient and the most noble military order of the Tower and of the Sword and of the valor, loyalty, and merit, the very words by which he lived his life. President and High Representative Sampaio was also recognized in many countries, receiving more than 40 decorations from foreign governments for his tireless work and commitment. In 2015, here at the United Nations headquarters, he was awarded the first ever United Nations Nelson Mandela Prize, the highest honor of our organization. The great son of Portugal, Jorge Sampaio will always be remembered for his generosity of spirit as a genuine leader and compassionate humanitarian. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Aliyev. And now I invite Ambassador Ali Dian, permanent representative of Guinea, representing African group, to deliver her remark on behalf of the group.
Mr. Secretary General, Mr. High Representative, Mr. Foreign Minister of Portugal, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is with profound sadness that I read this tribute on behalf of the African group to the memory of His Excellency Jorge Sampaio, the former President of Portugal and first High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. The passing away of this great leader, a fighter for democratic ideal at home and abroad, at the ripe age of 1881, was truly a sad day for the people of Portugal and internationally, and I convey the sincerest condolence of the African group to the people and government of Portugal. Late Jorge Sampaio approached his diplomatic business in an all-inclusive manner, and this reflected in the way he led Alliance of Civilization as the organization strived to bring different people and societies on the same platform and understanding and dialogue for the sake of a better world. His principle on freedom and equality carried through in all his responsibilities in Portugal and on the international stage, and this was made evident when he became a recipient of Nelson Mandela Prize in 2015, along with an African ophthalmologist. His tenure as the UN Secretary General Special Envoy to stop tuberculosis emphasized of fighting against TB by ensuring access to care, providing adequate funding, and empowering communities, while he pushed for TB to be placed high in the global post-2050 development agenda. As we gather today to pay tribute to the great leader and great diplomat, I urge all of to reflect in his ideal of achieving a better world free from fear and hunger, and imbibe this ethos as we seek to address the world pressing need together. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador, very much for your statement. And now I invite Her Excellency Ambassador Mohammed Hussain Bara Lulum, permanent representative of Iraq, to deliver the statement of the Arab group.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, His Excellency Augusto Santos Silva, and gentlemen, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Arabic group to pay tribute to the memory of His Excellency President Jorge Sampaio, the former High Representative of the Alliance of Civilization, and to offer our deepest condolences to his family and to the people of Portugal. President Sampaio was the first High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations and has laid the groundwork for his initiative to build bridges of dialogue and understanding between cultures and religions, reduce polarization at local and global levels, and foster the spirit of tolerance. The Alliance of Civilization was created to serve as a soft power political tool. It is a coalition against extremist forces a movement to advance mutual respect for cultures, traditions, and religious beliefs. The Arab countries were and continue to be among the pioneers that support the implementation of the principle of alliance. This is represented in the decision of the League of the Arab States to adopt a common Arab strategic plan for the alliance at the ministerial level in 2015. This strategy is based on several anchors. Among them is the principle of self-determination right of the Palestinian people and the emphasis on preservation of the identity of East Jerusalem. The principles of the alliance of civilizations are present in many actions and initiatives of Arab states, such as joining the group of friends of the Alliance of Civilization, providing the alliance with financial support and the creation of youth platforms for mutual understanding and centers for peaceful coexistence, as well as other initiatives and policies that manifest tolerance and partnership among civilizations and peoples. To conclude, President Sampaio was appointed to mark the launching of the implementation phase of the alliance, and today humanity is in dire need of making solidarity a duty through strengthening the role of preventive diplomacy, preventive conflict, and sustaining peace as a priority of everything we do together to build a safer and better civilizations where we all can prosper and develop. I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador Mohammed Hussain Bara, and for your word and your statement. And now I give the floor to Ambassador Jane Chijal, Permanent Representative of Micronesia, representing Asia Pacific Group.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I am honored to make this statement on behalf of the Asia Pacific Group and to offer our heartfelt condolences to the government and people of Portugal and the family and loved ones of the former President Jorge Sampaio. I extend also the group's sympathies and condolences to the leadership and staff of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. I thank the Alliance and the Permanent Mission of Portugal for organizing today's tribute. We remember and celebrate the life of a leader who dedicated his life to the services of his country and who will forever inspire many generations of Portuguese and those around the world whose lives he touched. He was a true statesman. His legacy goes far beyond Portugal. He was a public and an international civil servant, and his career spanned many decades. His dedicated time and his service as a global citizen at the United Nations as a special envoy to fight against tuberculosis and as the first UN High Representative for the Alliance of Civilization. Today, we are immensely grateful to the people of Portugal for sharing their son with the international community. The Portuguese and the international communities can be proud of President Sampaio's achievements, including in the pursuit to foster intercultural dialogue and cooperation amongst nations and people. He lived a life of service and duty to his country and far beyond. In this moment of reflection on the life and service of the former president, we stand by the Portuguese people and the Alliance as we deeply mourn his passing. His visionary leadership at the helm of the Alliance can bring transformational change to shape the future of our work at the United Nations towards preserving human relationship, our planetary home, and in defeating violent extremism that the former president exhibited during his life's work, and the legacy he leaves behind as a true global citizen. May his soul be at peace. I thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now I give the floor to Deputy Permanent Representative of Switzerland, Adrian Haury, representing Western European and other state group.
Dear Mr. Secretary General, dear Under Secretary General, Mr. President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, dear colleagues, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Western European and other states group and to extend our sincere condolences to the Republic of Portugal, to its authorities, and to the family and friends of His Excellency Mr. Jorge Sampaio, President of the Portuguese Republic from 1996 to 2006, who passed away on September 10th this year in Lisbon. We are united in grief as we mourn the passing of a political leader and a global citizen who exemplified national and global leadership with his personal dedication in the pursuit of democracy, social justice, and the rule of law. Mr. Sampaio led a life dedicated to public service. All through his distinguished career, he was a courageous and extraordinary advocate and defender of peaceful democratic transition. During turbulent times, he played a key role in promoting dialogue between political factions and relentlessly worked towards a transition to democracy. He was later a member of the European Human Rights Commission of the Council of Europe, where he played an important role in defending fundamental rights and in contributing to a more dynamic implementation of the principles contained in the European Convention on Human Rights. In May 2006, he was appointed by Kofi Annan as the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy to stop tuberculosis, and in April 2007, appointed by Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General, as UN High Representative for the Alliance of Civilizations. The values Mr. Sampaio lived and worked for are found in the mission and vision of the Alliance of Civilizations, improving cross-cultural relations between our diverse nations and communities. His achievements in the field of education for refugees and in advancing democracy and human rights nationally, regionally, and globally will continue to echo here at the United Nations. Let them be a guidance for us as we are, yet again, at an inflection point of multilateralism and as we should re-embrace, in the words of our common agenda, global solidarity. In the spirit of today's event, let me reiterate, on behalf of the WEOC Group, solidarity is not an option, it is a duty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Permanent Representative for Switzerland. And now I invite Mrs. Trishala Persaud, Minister Counselor of the Permanent Mission of Guyana, to deliver her remark representing the group of Latin American and Caribbean.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Secretary General, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal, President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the member states of the group of Latin American and Caribbean states. The member states of GRULAC are deeply saddened at the passing of His Excellency President Jorge Sampaio, former President of Portugal and first High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. President Sampaio will be remembered for his civic and political achievements, his profound humanity, and his compassion. GRULAC joins with the rest of the UN family in honoring his memory and in paying tribute to his sterling contribution to the work of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. President Sampaio was loaned to the United Nations by Portugal, a nation that has deep historical ties with the developing countries of the South, in Asia, Africa, and in our own region of Latin America and the Caribbean. UNAOC became more than just a platform under the visionary leadership of President Sampaio, who viewed the alliance as a new and complementary UN soft power tool to strengthen the human foundations of peace throughout the world and foster intercultural dialogue and cooperation among nations and peoples, encouraging respect for each other's rights and freedoms. During his tenure as High Representative of UNAOC, President Sampaio worked tirelessly to create the globally recognized initiative that UNAOC is today. He is also remembered for giving impetus to regional and national processes to implement the alliance's goals and increased cooperation among countries on intercultural and interfaith dialogue. The member states of Latin America and the Caribbean and their representatives here at the United Nations will always be inspired by the example left by President Sampaio, an example of dedicated and selfless service to his country and to the global community. We extend heartfelt condolences to his family and to the government and people of Portugal. May they find comfort in the enduring legacy that he has left behind. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And I thank the distinguished representative of the regional group for their statement and contribution. We have still 2 more speakers left in our program. I'm pleased to introduce a video message by Ambassador José Felipe Moraes Cabral, head of the civilian household of President Sampaio and former permanent representative of Portugal to the United Nations.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Looking back at Jorge Sampaio's life as a citizen, lawyer, and statesman, what strikes us first of all is the coherence and consistency of his thought and action, as well as his paramount personal integrity. During 60 years of public life, he defended his values and his principles with determination and courage, deeply committed to public service and to making our world a better one. One also remembers the constant kindness of his approach to others, his concern for their well-being, his openness to their ideas, their ways of life, their criticism. He strove to build bridges between people, between beliefs, between what were apparently non-reconcilable differences. He did not give up in adversity, but pushed on to reach his objective. But he did this with elegance and fair play. He was not shy, but had a liking for discretion. As a citizen, he fought for the establishment of democracy in our country and in university led the students' opposition to the dictatorship during the 1960s. As a lawyer, he defended political opponents of the authoritarian regime that oppressed Portugal for nearly 50 years, as well as anti-colonial activists. After the military coup that restored democracy in 1974 and put an end to the colonial wars in Africa, he actively intervened in internal politics, contributing to the consolidation of our new institutions and democratic practices. A young Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation at 36, he later became Secretary General of the Socialist Party, Mayor of Lisbon, and twice elected President of the Republic. He had to deal with some major political crises during his terms, but navigated them with political skill within a strict interpretation of his constitutional powers. He was a staunch defender of the European Union, of its ideals of peace, justice and equality, of economic and social development. He wished for a union that would not only be a common space of freedom, prosperity and solidarity, but that could also act as a promoter of peace and progress beyond its borders. The protection of human rights took him to Strasbourg, to the European Commission of Human Rights, where he worked to defend citizens against the arbitrary of states. He saw justice and the rule of law as the essential elements that gave sense to democracy and protected citizens against tyranny and the abuse of power, be it nationally or internationally. For Jorge Sampaio, upholding international law stood at the heart of world peace and security, an essential ingredient for the stability in peaceful relations between states. He never shied from denouncing situations where international law was violated. As president, he publicly criticized the intervention in Iraq and NATO's bombings in the Balkans, both pursued without a clear mandate from the Security Council. And he repeatedly insisted on the fact that political problems needed political solutions, not military ones. His commitment to peace, to the rule of law, and to bettering the livelihood of millions abandoned to poverty and sickness reinforced his belief in the need for global solutions. He was a staunch and active promoter of multilateralism. He defended the importance of the UN's role in building peace and keeping it in conflict situations. But his vision of the central role of the United Nations went far beyond peace building, encompassing fighting pandemics, addressing climate change in an effective way, promoting dialogue and understanding between cultures and religions, defending human rights, especially those of women and children, promoting international cooperation, and last but not least, creating the conditions for economic and social development to improve the fate of millions of human beings. To all these areas he gave his committed attention and his personal involvement, availing himself of all opportunities to further these objectives, supported by his detailed and shrewd knowledge of international affairs and by his vast public experience. This lifetime commitment was underlined when he became a recipient of the Nelson Mandela Prize in 2015, in recognition of his service to humanity and the promotion of the purposes and the ideals of the United Nations. Indeed, in the service of humanity, he became, as has already been mentioned, the first UN Secretary-General envoy to stop tuberculosis. Working closely with the World Health Organization, he sought to promote a better integrated approach in the fight against TB, to treat it as a public health problem, a poverty-related disease, and a human rights issue. In the service of humanity, he built, practically from scratch, the ambitious Alliance of Civilization process as its first High Representative, making it an important UN forum for dialogue and cooperation against hate and violence through local, regional and national initiatives to address issues of cultural diversity, as well as to improve cross-cultural understanding and cooperation. In the service of humanity, he launched a global platform for Syrian students, which grants emergency scholarships that allow students to resume their university studies abroad. More than 750 annual scholarships have been granted, benefiting students from Syria and other conflict-affected societies. More recently, this initiative was expanded and enlarged its field in order to allow for swift action in favor of university students caught in conflict and other emergencies. I had the honor, the privilege, and the enormous pleasure of working with Jorge Sampaio for the last 46 years, pursuing his different endeavors and sharing with him beliefs, objectives, strategies, and often frustrations. I did this in a variety of capacities and in many different situations. As private secretary, as diplomatic advisor, as chief of staff, as a simple helping hand when it was needed. For me, beyond everything else, beyond all our shared complicity, stood my profound admiration for the man, for his coherence, for his principled political career at the service of others, and my deep affection for a very humane person and a very dear friend. He was a man of peace. He was a man who cared. He was a good man. And for this, he will be remembered. I thank all those that made this afternoon possible, namely the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and the Alliance of Civilizations High Representative, Miguel Ángel Moratinos. And I thank you all for being here this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Cabral, for his outstanding, incredible words about President Sampaio. I cannot agree more that, as he said, he was a man of peace, he was a man who cared, he was a good man, and for this he will be remembered. Now I wish to give the opportunity to President Sampaio's daughter, Mrs. Bara Sampaio, to say a few words.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we are not unable to fly to New York City to attend this section. Thank you for having us online. My father had a strong belief in the United Nations. After the end of his term as President of Portugal, he was honored to serve the UN, first in joining the fight against TB, later in building bridges of dialogue between cultures and religions. On behalf of my mother and my brother, I would like to express our gratitude to the United Nations for this tribute to his memory. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bara Sampaio. And now I wish to welcome Her Excellency, the 76th President of the United Nations General Assembly, Mr. Abdullah Shahid. We are honored having you join us today. Please, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, President Jorge Sampaio was a visionary leader and a pillar of democracy. His contributions, both in Portugal as well as at the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, have left a lasting mark on democracy and on multilateralism. On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to convey our deepest condolences and sympathies to the government and people of Portugal as well as to the family and loved ones of President Sampaio. It was during President Sampaio's tenure as head of the Alliance of Civilizations that the General Assembly adopted Resolution 64/14, which recognizes the importance of intercultural and interreligious dialogue in promoting tolerance. President Sampaio's enduring legacy is perhaps best captured by his own words upon receiving the first ever United Nations Nelson Mandela Prize in 2015. And I quote, "The world has a collective obligation to protect the defenseless, defend human rights, and those who are suffering in war zones, at risk, or those in vulnerable situations. There is no other option but to have the UN lead in this process." Let us honor and pay tribute to the memory of President Sampaio by abiding by this collective obligation. May his soul rest in peace. I thank you.
Thank you, President of the General Assembly. And now, my distinguished guests, we now come to the conclusion of this special tribute in memory of President Jorge Sampaio. I wish to thank the permanent representative of the Mission of Portugal, Her Excellency Ambassador Francisco Antonio Duarte Lopez, and his team, as well as my team of UNAOC, for putting together this beautiful tribute. And I would like to leave you with one of President Sampaio's memorable quotes. In our one word, let's share one dream made of three wishes. First, achieve better right for all. Second, give really peace a chance. And third, build a common hope for future generations. Thank you very much. Thank you, President Sampaio. Thank you.